Om Shanti, and good morning from Romford Centre in England. My name's Andrew, and I want to talk today about self-respect and how we replace a negative form of pride with our self-respect or our self-worth. And when you think of what self-respect is obviously has to come from the self rather than the way others see us or the image that we project, because of course one moment that will be praised and the next moment it will be defamed, and so it's always oscillating from this, like a pendulum, from this feel-good factor to a state of unhappiness or even depression, whereby people see you in a certain light one moment in a form of respecting you and are very kind towards you, and the next moment they're not kind towards you, and it's all because of this lack of self-respect. In other words, something that's coming from the self for the self towards the self is not respectful enough towards the self. So when you have better thoughts about yourself, you're talking about your personality or your persona rather than any kind of physical beauty or physical positions, in the sense of the status that we achieve in life is a false sense of security, really. And recently I was listening to this story about a father that wanted the best for his son, and his father was a scientist, and his son wanted to be a musician, and he loved photography and he loved playing music, and so his father had one destiny for his son, and his son didn't really want to he didn't really want to become a scientist, or he didn't want to follow that same process of events, and his father couldn't really let it go, so he kept on badgering his son to make his life worthwhile rather than this meaningless lifestyle in his eyes that his son was following. And the way the story ended up is that the father lost his son, and the son lost his father. The son ended up as a busker, going from place to place around the world, touring the world, and his father, with his own sense of pride, of position, remained a scientist. Interestingly enough, his son was more socially accepted than the scientist in life, because the scientist father didn't have many social skills, and so the son was very much adored by his friends and family, and eventually the wife found the scientist husband too much to bear, really, because he had his own self-righteous ways of the way what success means to a person. And real success, true success, is your inner happiness and your inner stability, and basically what you swear allegiance to in life. And when Brahma Baba, this one to my left, to your right, would be when he first became a Brahmin and known as Brahma Baba, he actually had this realization that he was going to develop this new consciousness, this new awareness. He was getting rid of the old and in with the new. So he wasn't so concerned with people pleasing or his position in life. It was more to do with creating this new soul-conscious way of living in which you are swearing your allegiance to Dharma rather than the negatives. This is quite a powerful form because you would be tested on all levels, your integrity, your allegiance to Dharma, and what love truly is, what purity truly is, what peace, true peace truly is where you get your self-worth from and your self-respect. But it will be tested on all flanks because you would be going against public opinion, you'd be going against customs and systems, society, rituals, everything that's connected with your role would come to test you, and how much your ego is massaged by people pleasing and making others feel better about you, and then being your supply line of respect, because you're swapping one for another. You're becoming alive to your own self-worth, what in actual fact is your true values, which would be love at any cost, peace at any cost, happiness at any cost. And I read you something from the subject of self-respect. Self-respect is often mistaken for arrogance, when in reality it is the opposite. When I can recognize all my good qualities as well as my faults with neutrality, it's a big point. When I can recognize all my good qualities as well as my faults with neutrality, I can start to appreciate myself as I would a dear friend and experience the comfortable inner glow of self-respect. To embrace the journey towards my full potential, I need to become my own loving teacher and coach, spurring myself on to become a better human being. I will develop true regard for myself, and my life will become sacred. Beautiful aspect. Self-respect is a foundation stone of the consciousness to build on, so you're not being pulled by what other people think about you, and you're still giving them respect. Lots of people they're not being pulled by what other people say about them, but they still have an attitude, and that's one of the things that is quite damaging towards self-respect, a low attitude towards others or a bad attitude towards others, because your allegiance to Dharma means you're a child of the bestower, God, the bestower of love, the bestower of peace. You're that one's child, so at all costs your allegiance would be towards bestowing, and keep bestowing, and whoever takes what they want to take, that's up to them. And if they don't, if they could put up a fence to not take anything that's good from me, then it's not really that much about me, it's more about them. So to keep on and on, because you've got to become a master bestower, so therefore you've got to master these bestower feelings of respect and regard. Normally people say I'll give respect to people that give me respect, but that's not what allegiance, where you swear allegiance to Dharma or virtues or purity or truth. Use whatever word you like, but it's an allegiance to goodness, and only good must come from me, even if I have to say something that is stopping someone else's negativity, spoiling the family life. then let me say it with an open, a good heart, a big heart. Let me say it with the right tone, because that's my self-respect. My self-respect is something, a place where I work from, because I've got to reveal my self-worth to myself, not to others. And I think this is where it takes a major turn in life, when you're trying to prove your worth to others, and it gets caught up in, how much longer will you carry on pleasing people to actually get your self-worth from, and your allegiance to purity, your allegiance to truth, and your allegiance to Dharma and love. It could be that you settle for a self-respect which is very crumbly. It's built on a very weak foundation, whereby that means that I'm being run by, I'm the puppet on their strings, because if they are happy with me, then I'm happy, but if they're not happy with me, then I won't be happy. And so when you talk about upsetting the apple cart, is that sometimes we're not really working on the correct level, so we settle to keep the peace in the family, which is short-term peace, long-term peacelessness. And I remember with the born into this gender of the male gender, whereby the ego has to keep proving itself again and again. And right from my school time, when I had to pass my what was called the 11 plus in those days, and you were seen in a certain way if you went to grammar school rather than went to secondary modern school, and they actually called it secondary modern school in my time. And when I was making this effort to get to the grammar school, my mother said that if you go to the secondary modern school, there's lots of bullies there, and it's got quite a reputation for beating children up. So I was more interested in not being beaten up rather than academic studies. So I got my head down to study, and I wanted to please my mum as well, plus I didn't want to get beaten up at school. So I ended up in grammar school, and there was always this more and more people putting more and more in front of you to become a success, and people relate that to their self-respect, but in reality it's just massaging the ego of the body. The male's playing a certain role whereby it has to be one of the boys. And so instead of standing out like a sore thumb, I find myself in the same dilemma, because now all of a sudden I've got to grammar school, and now I've got to be one of the boys, accepted by them. And of course, there's the school that expects a certain way of conducting yourself, and with my friends they expect a certain way of conducting myself, and it's all a massage of the ego, which is creating more and more insecurity, more and more unhappiness, because then the next rung of the ladder, the next step of this staircase will be put in front of me, and I've got to move towards that as well. Must have a girlfriend, and sex was the big issue, whereby you were seen as, if you hadn't had sex by a certain age, you were seen as in a certain light, and that would affect more and more inferiority complexes. I actually ended up with anorexia, bulimia by the time I was 18, because of this stigma of self-respect that adults, your peers, teachers, the political world, the social acceptance that we work so hard to achieve. And then when I became a Brahmin, a BK in 1983, it was like a breath of fresh air, really, where I could put down this ego and actually create a state of soul consciousness that wasn't affected by what people said and what people did and whether they appreciated you or not. But of course there's more tests to come. Just because someone moves from a non-spiritual to a spiritual path, it doesn't mean anything unless day in, day out we're becoming more spiritual and more aware of our spirituality. I remember when I wanted to open a centre and bought a house especially to open a centre and set it up like like any centre would be set up, with all the pictures on the walls of all spiritual things, the soul, supreme soul, the world drama cycle, the Kalpa tree, the ladder. All of these are lessons that we learn in Raj Yoga, in the Brahma Kumaris World Spiritual University. And I remember having all these pictures up and feeling that this is wonderful, this is a new opening for me. And I just wanted other people to experience the benefits that I'd experienced, but really forgot that I've still got this ego inside of me which is damaging to my self-worth, self-respect. And at times, a lot of times without realising, I would want this ego massaged. So when a student would come and they were very happy with the knowledge, and I would be impressed at how impressive I am without realising, and I was just wanting that person to come closer to the source of love and the source of peace. So when all of a sudden a student would come, and I remember I put a very plush chair in the middle of the room for that person because they should be comfortable in God's home, Baba's home. It's being used for godly things, for spiritual things, to uplift others. And so as soon as I started talking, after a while I got kind of this mental block whereby every time I start talking it would put him to sleep, and he would drift off to sleep very quickly within 5 minutes, even 3 minutes. Sometimes as soon as my dulcet tones were listened to, he would go. And so next time he came, I'd moved the comfortable chair and I'd put a hard chair there, and his first words were, where's my chair? So I said to him, oh, it's being repaired and we've got to use that chair for now. And still he managed to fall asleep. And so my ego was attracted towards the fact that he must see me in a certain light, he must have attention, he must not fall asleep, he must take benefit. If he doesn't understand, it's more to do with him than it is to do with me. And really this is my learning curve, if you like, to not get the self-worth from outside, but to get the self-worth from inside, is the war that takes place between self-respect and ego, so that the self-respect can destroy the ego of the body, which is very, very powerful. The ego of the body, a person, the way that they are displayed, are put on display to others, how they look, how youthful they look, how wrinkle-free they are, how their image is. And let's supposing 5 years down the line, I've opened 10 centres and brought so many people to spirituality, and then I have a vision one day in meditation that can you walk away? Can you let them go without even a thought towards that? Because your self-worth, you're doing everything for yourself and everyone is doing everything for themselves. Sounds quite selfish in a body-conscious way, but the fact is I've got an ego that mustn't be massaged, that must be slowly and gradually whittled away, and the ego will be there to test me. People will ego crunch me, so they'll say harsh things, bad things, but it's my ego getting crunched, and if I react to that, then I'm building an ego and destroying, letting go of a self-respect and a self-worth. Whatever you feel you have to prove to others is not creating self-respect, it's creating a stronger ego, which creates a stronger fear. And when it gets crunched, it's because that person is an ego cruncher, which is, welcome, you're an ego cruncher, and you're crunching my ego by disrespecting me, but my self-respect is being built. So I'm ignoring that and just building bestower, benefactor feelings, because that's who we're children of. We don't want to be their creation, we want to be God's creation. So we're modelling ourselves on a different model. So if I clash with you, with egos, then I'm modelling myself on you, and you're modelling yourself on me, and it all ends up in tears, because our self-worth, our self-confidence would be arrogance rather than coming from a place of power. Arrogance has no power. It has no power to transform anyone. And so if God asked me to walk away from 10 centres where I've got a position of apparent power, there's no power in it, it's just an illusion. But in my world of ego, there can be this power of my position and the trust that I've been given. I walk away from that without a single thought. Then my self-respect is in touch with my true self, and I'm in touch with my true self-respect. So swearing allegiance to the ego, swearing allegiance to greed is what means it means I can be fraudulent, I can be greedy, because it's more important to me than peace if I'm working on the wrong level. So self-respect takes you inside, away from the outside. You've got nothing to actually, an image outside will be forgotten. Let's say 30 years down the line, no one remembers you, no one remembers what you did, or it's becoming invisible, it's becoming forgotten. When you take the soul that played the role of Gandhi, is that soul is a point of light that played the role of Gandhi. So therefore the people that knew Gandhi, well, the body was burnt. So all souls are the same. We're all tiny points of light, and all our roles, what we get so much from, whether it be a mother, husband, child, the culture we follow, the regimes we follow. So many people don't follow this path because they want to keep the peace at home, and they don't keep the peace at home long term. They keep the peace at home short term, and something else will emerge again and again, because that's what happens to body conscious cultures, body conscious systems, the competitiveness that devotees have amongst themselves, often to be the best devotee. You can do everything at home, but a person will go to the temple often to impress other people, often to make them be seen as a very good devotee, so they wear all the colours, but they don't really need to wear all those colours. They can remember God at home with love. We're all children of God. That's where we start off. A child of God has no worries. They have their whole focus on not just loving God, because supposing God's not impressed with your love, are you happy that you're expressing love? And that's all that matters. You're swearing allegiance to your pure love, which is connected to your pure identity. So even impressing God isn't an issue. Impressing others is third. Impressing God is second. Impressing the self, in other words, leaving those imprints indefinitely, permanently on the soul, on the purity and the love that's in the soul, is all that matters. So you're actually becoming completely independent with self-respect. And I know there's this common belief that there are these people that they buck the system, they go against the system and they say, right, I no longer will, I don't care, who cares about me, what people think of me, I'm going my own way. And we used to have this at school. We used to have like the school uniform in grammar school, and then there was our football outfits, our sports outfits, where Faraday would wear. We were all split into these houses. There was Spencer, Gainsborough, Faraday, and they all played for their house. Basically, their colours were their house, and we all wore maroon. And Spencer's, the football team, would wear all white, and the yellow of Gainsborough would wear a different colour, and we were against and for. So it was very competitive. And then someone didn't want to wear the complete maroon outfit. They wanted to be different, so they would wear a pair of white socks or black shorts just to be different, just to be seen as different. And I know you get these people that want to start their own image. They don't want to follow the fashion. They don't want to be one of the people that have a name. By wearing a name, they have a name, Gucci or whatever the names are these days of the different fashion conscious people, or having the latest iPhone, and people must see the phone that I've got, and look, this is what my image is, but in actual fact that's all the path of ego. That's even the path of arrogance, you could say, that look at me, look what I've got. And even this, when people do buck the trend and they go against it altogether, it's still ego, because it's the desire for my image to be different. So these people that say, I don't care what they think, I'm not here to please them, are still following their own, being controlled by their own image that they're projecting, their own image that they're creating. So being full of value in Dharma, value in self-worth and integrity, even if the whole world goes against me, like they did with this one. The ones that were on his side weren't as strong as he was, and so they wouldn't, a lot of them went to the other side, to the people that were against him, Because when you're starting a new consciousness, then you're going to go against the grain, and it's going to go against the impurity of this world. And it actually shows up their impurity and their dogma. And they can beat me up, they could abuse me, they could even maybe satellite to the centre, but my allegiance must still be towards the goodness, because the goodness will bear fruit. Badness only bears bad fruit, and we're coming away from all this body conscious belief systems. So many people don't follow this path because it will unsettle the family. Well, that's their understanding of what self-respect is, and if that's their understanding of what self-respect is, it's not mine. So therefore, while they're going out and socialising and following the normal suit that people follow, to me, it's all a place that ends up in competition anyway, and you never win a competition that you're fighting with others. You never win a competition that involves comparing with others. You are your own master. What you do becomes your own creation. You create your own happiness and chase out the false sense of happiness, the happiness that's giving you the sense of security, which breeds insecurity, breeds the ego of self-righteousness, stubbornness, and that I must listen to someone that is going down the wrong path because they're my father or they're following my grandfather, and I must also follow the family name. No. If something needs to be changed, then let it change with me. And I remember very much, there was a feeling, a realization that from 1983 to 1993 on this path of Raj Yoga, I'd spent the majority of time massaging my own ego. So I was away from all the worldly desires, not even a television in the centre, not even a radio in the centre, wasn't interested in the news of the outside world, but my connection with service to others was massaging my own ego. There was the false motive within a pure motive, and as you know, just a drop of poison tends to make the whole batch or the water poison. So it's a quest, if you like, a quest. With the ego there are always questions. With this quest, all the questions get put aside as you return to your true self. The mind doesn't go into a state of confusion when there is this swearing allegiance to Dharma. So I'm not interested whether, or there's less interest. I will be interested while the ego is still alive of what people think of me, but we can say I'm less interested in what they think of me day by day as my allegiance becomes more towards peace, love and harmony, and away from the ego of body consciousness, which is to do with massaging the ego and giving me the feel-good factor for the moment that I've been socially accepted by people that are fighting to become socially accepted. So Om Shanti, we finish off with some meditation on self-respect. So I turn within and let go of the role and what the role means to my ego. I am aware that I have an ego, but I'm now using the energy of the ego of the body to the pure pride of being a child of God under the protection, the canopy of protection of pure love, of the ocean of love. I create a shift away from human beings, away from how they see me, a shift to how God sees me and the love that God sees me with. I am His child. He is my parents. God will always be my eternal parents. Human beings change bodies every life, will play different roles, are not my source of self-worth and self-respect. I start to love my own love. I start to love my own peace. I swear allegiance to Dharma, the goodness that's within me. I will follow a path, a quest that takes me inside, away from the questions, the confusion of the outside. I focus my attention on love and let go of all tension. I feel my mind and body become free from tension. I am letting go of the reins of the ego, the self-righteousness and the stubbornness, the arrogance, the ego of my own vanity. I let go. I no longer mind what people see, what people say about me, and what people believe me to be, because my allegiance, what I believe in, is Dharma. Om Shanti.